when we talk about the hidden hand or the people who control us, that itself is a multifaceted conversation because they have done a really good job at creating what's called plausible deniability and making sure that the average person who is still stuck in their indoctrination, that they can't find out who they are. A lot of times these organizations and these people establish philanthropic fronts so that people say, oh, well, they're just philanthropists. It's just a fraternity of good old boys. They're not evil. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, they're conniving to enslave us. And it's really obvious when you look at the public school system.
We were talking about the insidious nature of the Pledge of Allegiance. Which I don't know if that's something that you were subjected to as a child, but I remember very vividly as a very young child, 6, 7 years old and onward, every morning in the public schools, putting my hand over my heart at my teacher's behest, right? And with every other classmate and everybody else in the school over the loudspeaker, saying the Pledge of Allegiance, looking at this, American flag. And I remember even as a child thinking, this is a little bit odd. I'm pledging allegiance to the flag. And I remembered also as a child thinking, well, I thought, my parents told me that we are supposed to pledge our allegiance to God.
Are you ready to ask the questions others won't and challenge the stories you've been told and maybe the ones you've been telling yourself? This is the Counterplot.
Have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world.
The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%.
A world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations.
There is no question whatsoever.
When we are successful, and we will be.
I've got one that can see.
And now, here are your hosts, Kyle Lewis and Nathan Moon.
All right, we are recording. We are on. We are live. All right, well, first of all, glad that you're having a good day. How is your search? How is your quest for living space going?
It's not the easiest thing to find housing these days.
Yeah, I hear you.
Every challenge is double opportunity to grow and learn. If we can make it through this time, I think on the other side, we're going to have a bunch of humans that are extra strong, smart, and prepared for whatever this fight may bring.
Yeah. Yeah, productive humans with a stronger sense of self responsibility, but also I think stronger and hopefully more resilient communities, which I think is the purpose. That's like the ultimate purpose behind this podcast. So welcome to whoever hears this. This is the pilot episode. My name is Nathan Moon.
I'm Kyle Lewis.
Yeah. Boy, we're going to try to do a weekly podcast, and we're just going to discuss, what would you say?
I would say we're focused on the truth. Yeah, first and foremost. As in a world of lies, we want to bring out the truth in a way that can empower people to, as we said, be their best selves, and also to find sort of a rock of sanity in an insane world. I know we've both been very comforted by each other's understanding of reality because it's truthful.
Yeah. Hence the title that we both landed on, which is the Counterplot, just really countering their narrative, trying to uncover the truths that people can develop that sense of awareness of who they are and what their true potential in this world can be. Despite whatever disagreements we have, because we're all individuals, we all have different pasts and histories and worldviews, but definitely just trying to encourage others to question everything and not take anything for granted, because really a lot of what we're going to talk about today, these several topics really kind of just touch on, I would say, when you sent me this list of topics, I thought, wow, this really just has to do with how are we even educating ourselves and what is that process about?
Well, I think we both recognize that one of the major challenges before us in this world of lies is this concept that we need a government.
Yeah.
That we need some kind of centralized authority to guide us and to instruct how we live our lives. And I think we are both in firm agreement that that is not the case, that centralized authority is stifling, to put it mildly. One of the things we were talking about the other day is how this idea, this false notion that we need government, is something that is imbued in us very early on in life.
Yeah, well, I had some time this morning to sit down and kind of dust off some books that were on my bookshelf, and I guess I'll start there. I have a quote here from someone named John Dunphy. I don't know exactly who he is, but he writes a book in The Humanist, quote, "The battle for humankind's future must be waged and won in the public school classroom by teachers, utilizing a classroom instead of a pulpit to convey humanist values in whatever subject they teach. The classroom must and will become an arena of conflict between the old and the new, the rotting corpse of Christianity," which I would put in quotes, "together with all its adjacent evils and misery, and the new faith of humanism," end quote. And the reason why I put the term Christianity in quotes there is because, as you know, Christians are a large, mainstream evangelical Protestant and Catholic Christians are a large part of the problem, namely because they willingly submit to the idea that they need the state. And with that idea of government comes the necessity for public education. And a lot of people, secular and non-secular, send their children to public school. I went to public school, right? I think you went to public school, right?
Yes. Yep.
I mean, that in and of itself is a large problem. Not to say every Christian or even every secularist sends their kid to public school, but I think that the main problem is that we have this system of public education. And what I discovered, it's not exactly the deepest dive, but what I've discovered is that this is the perfect system of capturing the mind of the youth and turning them into obedient slaves. And it goes right down to the symbols and the things that we say while we're in these places. And that's actually something I'm really excited to talk about, because I was blown away by some of what I learned.
One point to build off what you just said, which is that this is a multi-generational government indoctrination program, right? Your parents have suffered the same indoctrination. Their parents very likely have suffered the same indoctrination. We're talking lifetimes and lifetimes here of the same propagandizing that's been going on in these public schools. And it makes it very difficult for a person to overcome not only their own formative years spent suffering this indoctrination, but then having it reinforced by parents and grandparents. I mean, it's very difficult for the average person to be able to escape that type of mind control.
Yeah. Yeah, it's they have, and when I say they, we'll learn a little bit about who they are, because I think that you and I agree that when we talk about the hidden hand or the people who control us, that itself is a multifaceted conversation, because they have done a really good job at creating what's called plausible deniability and making sure that the average person who is still stuck in their indoctrination, that they can't find out who they are. A lot of times these organizations and these people establish philanthropic fronts so that people say, oh, well, they're just philanthropists. It's just a fraternity of good old boys. They're not evil. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, they're conniving to enslave us. And it's really obvious when you look at the public school system.
We were talking about the insidious nature of the Pledge of Allegiance. Which I don't know if that's something that you were subjected to as a child. But I remember very vividly as a very young child, 6, 7 years old and onward, every morning in the public schools, putting my hand over my heart at my teacher's behest, right? And with every other classmate and everybody else in the school over the loudspeaker, saying the Pledge of Allegiance, looking at this, American flag. And I remember even as a child thinking, this is a little bit odd. I'm pledging allegiance to the flag. And then I remembered also as a child thinking, well, I thought, my parents told me that we are supposed to pledge our allegiance to God. But no, we're pledging to this flag that's under God. Okay, that's confusing.
Yeah. When I took another look into this issue, I actually discovered that first ask the question, which God are we talking about? And then it's actually that whatever that God is actually serves the flag. It's like the flag is draped over this idol. And when you pull the flag away, you'll discover what that idol is. And so let me start here. I guess what I found was that, first of all, with the flag comes that Pledge of Allegiance you were talking about. And I didn't know this, but the guy who wrote the Pledge of Allegiance was a so-called Baptist minister. His name was Francis Bellamy. Have you heard of him?
No.
Okay, so what I learned was that Francis Bellamy, he was born in 1855. In 1889, he co-founded the Society of Christian Socialists. He launched a campaign called the Schoolhouse Flag Movement, or Flag Over Every Schoolhouse Movement. Okay. Now, there's an article from anarchochristian.com. All links will be put in the show notes. So anarchochristian.com, which is a good website, has an article titled The Pledge of Allegiance, what it is, what it isn't, and where it came from. So from that article, it says, quote, although there was a pledge written during the Civil War by Captain George Thatcher Balch, the pledge that we say today is primarily the work of Francis Bellamy in 1892, and then later adopted by Congress in 1942, which I thought was interesting because that means it was written over 100 years after the American Revolution. And I didn't know this, but the words under God were added in 1954, almost 10 years after its initial adoption.
The one actually Christian part of it.
I know.
It's not even written by this Christian pastor.
I know. It's crazy. Yep. So, it begs the question, were Christian values and the Christian God initially thought of in its penning? No, it wasn't.
No, right. Astoundingly, right? So obviously this pastor is either very confused or has another agenda.
It gets worse, dude. It gets worse.
Oh no.
I was shocked because this article on the Anarcho-Christian website does a really good job of explaining sort of like the general history. But I was like, man, like, who is this guy? So I'll continue reading from the article, anarchochristian.com, from that article. It says the movement involved Americanization efforts in part because of the personal interests of the magazine's leadership, which we'll talk about as we go on, but also because of the publisher's desire to boost subscription sales through gimmicks and giveaways that appealed to the patriotic fervor of the times.
Oh, so surprising. It comes back to money.
So follow the money, okay? These elites, these people in high places are just grifters. So
anything to make a buck.
Yeah. So always follow the money. That's like one thing that you and I and a lot of people in the truther movement have discovered is when in doubt, just follow the money.
I like money too, but at what cost?
Exactly.
What cost?
We're going to see what the cost is. These gimmicks, the articles. Yeah, exactly. The article continues. These gimmicks included campaigns to distribute American flags to every school and the promotion of inexpensive images of George Washington. Both of the magazine's efforts were successful in boosting magazine sales and, in the process, fostering a tradition of patriotic material culture in American classrooms. So I think it would be safe to say that up until this point, there wasn't such an emphasis on patriotic culture. It was just sort of like this general idea that we're Americans, we're together, but there wasn't this fervor. You know what I mean?
Right. We can assume it was we're Christians and then Americans.
Yeah, exactly.
Christians first, Americans second.
Yep. And I want to emphasize that this is a socialist who is doing this campaign. So in other words, the socialist propaganda effort of uniting citizens under these symbols was successful. Now, do you know when I was doing this research, have you heard of the Bellamy salute?
Oh, no.
When you type in the Bellamy salute into any search engine, you're going to find children standing in classrooms, facing the flag with their right arm fully extended toward the flag.
Big Heil, baby.
So that's a Sieg Heil right there. And this is before.
Well, Bellamy, it could be pronounced Bellamy.
Yes.
Can't help but notice, right?
I didn't even think of that. I'm going to write, man.
Oh, they're so good. They're always a couple steps ahead.
Oh, the Baal salute. Wow. Oh my.
Yeah.
So now let's transition. We have the pledge. It says, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay.
Okay, because the under God part was not included until the 1950s. Now, I asked the question, I wonder if this man, aside from just being like belonging to this magazine and belonging to this particular organization, what other organizations is he part of? Now.
Oh, no. Freemasonry.
He's a Freemason.
Oh, how did I know, Nathan? How did I know?
He's a Freemason. I just typed in
Of course he is.
I typed in, is Francis Jade Bellamy a Freemason? And it took me to, there's a website called the masonictravel.com. And it says this. It says, quote, the Reverend Francis Jade Bellamy was a Mason, a member of Little Falls Lodge, number 181, Little Falls, New York. The Order of the Eastern Star erected a memorial tablet to him in 1955 in Oriskany, New York. In the same article, if you keep reading, it says James B. Upham was a man imbued with patriotic fervor. At the close of the last century, he was a partner of the firm publishing The Youth's Companion, a juvenile periodical of Boston. One of his strong beliefs was that an American flag should be flown over every schoolhouse. To this end, he persuaded his magazine to sponsor a plan to sell flags to schools at cost. The idea being so successful that 25,000 schools acquired flags in just 1 year. So I'm just going to connect the dots here. In 1891, Bellamy was hired by Daniel Ford to work in the premium department for the children's magazine Youth's Companion. So it's a meeting of the Freemasonic minds here for this magazine, the Youth's Companion. He helped to lead the campaign to establish flags over every American schoolhouse. As the old saying goes, get them while they're young, right?
Yep. That's like the Stalin quote or something. Give them to me by the time they're 5 and they'll have them for life.
Exactly. So this was definitely to cultivate a sense of fraternity among the populace, beginning with the youth. Quoting Bellamy, quote, now this is Bellamy, he said, it began as an intensive communing with salient points of our national history, from the Declaration of Independence onwards, with the makings of the Constitution, with the meaning of the Civil War, with the aspiration of the people. The true reason for allegiance to the flag is the, quote, republic for which it stands. And what does that last thing, the republic, mean? It is the concise political word for the nation, the one nation which the Civil War was fought to prove. So in other words, I think what we see here is a betrayal of something that isn't obvious to a lot of people, which is the fact that so many of our founding fathers were Freemasons.
Absolutely.
So they want to indoctrinate us into the same patriotic fervor that these Masons have. So it really begs the question, first of all, they didn't put under God in his pledge at first. But I think that with all things that they do, it's a slow rollout. So that by the time the 1950s comes along, they slide in under God there. And the God that the Freemasons worship is not the God of Jesus Christ. It is.
And now, how many Freemasons do you think, that is correct, but how many Freemasons actually realize this? I think it's the vast majority of them have no idea. They're in there for the connections and business deals and this sort of thing. I don't think they really know. They're mostly dupes, I would say. And I'm not trying to insult anybody who might be a Freemason out there, but when you get involved in these types of organizations, you don't know what you're putting your energy and faith behind.
Well, I think that what this showed me is that really this entire nation, or at least people on both sides of any political spectrum, of any political party who participates in this republic, this system of democracy, these people are the lowest level Freemasons you could imagine. And then the next step is you become an adult and you say, hey, I want to hang out with other men. Or in the case of women, I want to hang out with other women and do charitable works. So then, boom, you have, the Freemasons, you have the lodges, right? And you slowly, it's a step pyramid scheme. So the lowest level is every child that every irresponsible, neglectful parent drops their child off to school. Those kids are being indoctrinated into this Freemasonic cult. That's what it is.
That's true. That's very true. I often say that this is not a Christian nation. This is a Freemasonic nation.
Yes. The land of the Freemason.
That's right. And I think most people are not privy to that. And most people are aware that almost all cops are Freemasons. They're low level, right? They're the lowest rung on the ladder, but they're all judges, all lawyers. They're all Freemasons. You're not going to have a successful career in those types of fields unless you are a Freemason. And this is just something that people don't understand. People think it's just a nice community organization. It's good for people. Maybe it is. Okay, maybe it is. But you have to understand that hierarchy is the devil's tool. Yeah, that's what the devil uses to get things done in this world. And then does the devil get things done in this world? And it's done through this compartmentalization. You're on the bottom rung. You don't know what the higher rungs are doing, but they're happy to use you because you have pledged your allegiance and you are completely servile to them. That's how we get into the situation we're in now, where everyone is just following orders, just doing my job, just following orders.
Well, let me, because I was along the same lines, the only thing that has changed is the sudden realization, like once I realized that this man was himself a Freemason, he was working with Freemasons to this end, I realized, wow, every kindergartner, from the time you're in preschool, kindergarten, or at least from the time you are facing that flag and saluting it and pledging that allegiance, you've entered the cult. You have been initiated. So children, not even cops and judges and lawyers, those people have power because they have begun to climb that ladder. Children are at the lowest rung of that ladder, and they are, every public school essentially is a Freemasonic farm.
Oh boy. And you know what this speaks to, Nathan, is the sort of magical spell-like quality of these types of things and how they can actually, there's some kind of higher dimensional spiritual power that these things can place over the human mind. And I think that's one of the ways you can explain all of the nonsensical behavior we see from people, all of the stupid behavior, the behavior that hurts themselves, right?
Yep.
supporting organizations that actively hurt them.
And it's crazy too. Here, let me give you another quote. So this is from, I didn't read this book, but this book is cited in the article. Quote, Bellamy viewed his pledge as, quote, an inoculation that would protect immigrants and native-born, but insufficiently patriotic Americans from the, quote, virus of radicalism and subversion. So the meaning is clear. They needed to strongly meld the masses of whoever comes here to this country. You have to pledge allegiance to that flag. If you're a citizen of this country, you have to pledge allegiance to that flag. And the purpose is to meld them into one uniformly indoctrinated unit. I am proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. ...
I'm proud to be a terrorist, where at least I think I'm free. Sorry.
Right. It's just crazy.
Yeah. I want to say one thing, Nathan, that I think is important to say. You know, some people may listen to this and say, oh, these guys are anti-American, they're commies or whatever. But that's just the point that we're saying here, is that actually we're pro-freedom, right? We are pro the things that everybody thinks America stands for, we are for. Yeah, this speaks to the mind control, right? If you think we're commies, if you think we're anti-American, you need to look inward and decide what is inciting you to think that or feel that way, because you might find that these are not your own organic ideas. These ideas have been implanted into you by very smart people who are very calculating and quite possibly diabolical, but at least very calculating. This is the danger, right? This is the danger of the flag-waving patriotism stuff. Now, I love my homeland. I do not love my government. I'll say that outright. But I love my countrymen. I love my compatriots. And that's why we're doing this. We want for people to have the tools to separate these ideas in their mind, because it's very, very dangerous to rabidly support anything that isn't of God, basically. And these things are of men. A government is something that is of men. And that's the point that we're making, is that the flag is not a crucifix. And even a crucifix is still a symbol, right? It is not the be all end all. What's important is being a good person. And to me, being a good person is valuing freedom, not only for yourself, but for everybody, because that is how we maximize our potential. That's how we live our best life.
Yeah, exactly. I would only add to that, I mean, the fact is that this is why we see such a push now in our current time to criminalize things like freedom of speech. It's now illegal to burn the American flag for fear that it might incite rebellion, right? This only services Bellamy's exact purpose to unify this to cultivate this hive mind to the point where someone who just disagrees with you is now your enemy and no longer a friend, no longer a neighbor, no longer someone who you used to be able to go to the bar and have a drink with or play sports with, because they're whipping up this political fervor, and it all centers around this idol.
Yes.
Which is
a false idol.
Yeah.
A false idol.
Yes.
I wonder, Nathan, I really do wonder why. I'm sure there are a lot of people who have, American flag bumper stickers, and maybe they serve in the military, maybe they're active duty, they're a police officer. What is it about the American flag that is so effective in controlling their behavior? And this is the kind of thing that I would implore people to reflect upon. Why? Why is that so important to you? I think it honestly, like we're saying, it goes back to these things like the Pledge of Allegiance that is hoisted upon you at a tender age.
How about this? In addition to not just the pledge, but as Bellamy said, it goes back to the salient points of our national history from the Declaration of Independence onwards, right? I mean, Francis Scott Key and that song, The Star-Spangled Banner.
The
right?
national sing-along.
Yes, the national anthem, the sing-along. This is, to me, it's just evident now, as clear as day, that these are not just occult symbols, but occult rituals, occult
Spells.
incantations,
Yes.
the power of frequency, the power of
Correct.
speech, the power of the spoken word. It's one thing to think something, but once you speak it, it is there. People cry when I say these words because with these words come, oh, my cousin came home in a casket and that flag is draped over it.
Exactly. As sad as that, it's just so hard to deprogram from that.
Let me go on. Yeah.
It's trauma-based mind control.
Exactly. How could you? That person died for that flag. Really? Really? You died for an inanimate object. It's insane to me. And I come from a long line of servicemen, both military and police. And so it was strong in my family. The delusion was strong. And I'm sorry, it is a delusion. Very clearly. It's sad.
And if you're offended, any listener out there, if you're offended by this, you have work to do on yourself to understand why this is triggering you.
Yeah. Yep.
Because this is what we're saying. This is the mind control. And just like Nathan just said, these are spells. I remember working a job, the radio's on. Every half an hour, they play the Star Spangled Banner.
Really?
And everyone's just getting along with their day. They're not really paying attention, but there it is going into your mind and your awareness is down.
And what's crazy?
What's your point?
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say this is a larger point, but this is the importance of awareness and constantly being in control of your reality through awareness, understanding what is subliminally entering your mind and the effects that is going to have on your decision making and thinking in the future.
Yep. There are people were there ever people in those situations that would stop what they're doing and just kind of salute? Because there are people who they might be, I've seen it. They'll be walking through public, the anthem will come on just randomly, and they'll stop and they'll start saluting, or they'll place their hand over their heart and take their hat off.
It's amazing. And it's just so reminiscent of the USSR or North Korea even. You see some of these videos and you're like, why do these people cry when Kim Jong-un takes the stage?
Yeah.
Are they crazy? And yet here we have our own countrymen doing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Exact same thing.
Yep. So I have two anecdotes real quick. So a couple of years ago, I'm the eldest in our family. So a couple of years ago, my sister graduated high school and we went, even though I didn't want to. So she graduates from public school, and of course they start the ceremony with the national anthem. So everyone stands, and it was like me and the 5 other members of my immediate family, so my wife and my children, all remained seated. And everyone stood, everyone turned, everyone placed their hand over their heart, everyone stood there in silence. And it didn't matter if they were Republican, progressive, liberal, libertarian, atheist, Christian, Buddhist, didn't matter. They're all part of the same Freemasonic lodge called the American Public.
Yes.
And that's what it is. I didn't know that it was Freemasonic at that point. I had my suspicions, but I didn't know that the person who wrote the pledge, the person who designed the flag, I mean, we probably don't have time to even get into the symbolism of the flag itself, but like it is a Freemason. The United States is itself one large Freemasonic lodge.
That's right. You can look to The Secret Destiny of the United States by Albert Pike to get a more thorough understanding of the plan and that is being acted out now through the United States. And of course, it's always going to have this really appealing facade in front of it, right? Oh, it's all freedom and it's You're the government. You have the power.
Yep.
But as we know, Satan runs on inversion, right? And so it's telling you one thing and it's actually the opposite.
That's part of the plausible deniability. People right now are saying, oh, I voted for this. Meanwhile, our government is committing atrocity after atrocity after atrocity. So when you go into that booth to secretly vote, you're pledging, you're consenting to whatever that.
Correct. Condoning the actions of your government.
And it's not passive. It takes time to go there and to cast that vote. And speaking of Albert Pike, he said, I'm probably going to butcher the quote, but he said, when they require a hero, we shall provide them.
Right.
So every single president is a Freemason. Every single one.
Yes. Yes. Almost every politician. You're not going to get in there unless you're a Freemason. No way.
Exactly. Now, the pledge itself, we're talking about like incantations. What does it, when you say, I pledge allegiance to the flag it didn't say, I pledge allegiance to the God of Jesus Christ. It said, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. Okay. So that right there comes before the under God part, which, remind you, was not added until the 1950s.
Right.
And what is a pledge anyway? Well, Webster's tells us, quote, and this is cool, dictionaries are wonderful. And here's the thing. We all learn how to, quote unquote, use a dictionary when we attend school, don't we? Unfortunately, we aren't taught how to think about what we're reading. We aren't taught to actually think through these things.
Isn't that why, Nathan, it's called a spell? Because it's spelled.
It's spell binding. Now, Webster's tells us a pledge is, quote, a binding promise or an agreement to do or forbear. A promise to join a fraternity, sorority, or secret society. Further, if you look up pledged or pledging, it means to, quote, make a pledge of, especially to pawn. So when you pledge your allegiance to the flag, to the republic for which it stands, when you pledge to this one nation under quote unquote God, you are pawning yourself off. You're abdicating your mind, abdicating your soul, abdicating your responsibility, abdicating your entire being to this foreign entity, this parasitical structure run by psychopaths.
Yes.
And what did Jesus say?
Such a tragedy.
What did Jesus say? Matthew 5:33-37. Again, ye have heard that it hath been said by them of old time. So he's saying, here's the tradition you grew up hearing. You shall not forswear yourself, but shall perform unto the Lord thine oaths. But I say unto you, here's Jesus' standard, swear not at all.
Right.
Neither by heaven, for it is God's throne, nor by the earth, for it is his footstool, neither by Jerusalem. And I would dare say, neither by the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands. For it is the city of the great king. Neither shalt thou swear by thy head, because you can't make one hair white or black. He says, but let your communication be yea, yea, nay, nay, for whatsoever is more than these cometh of evil. So,
correct.
I would say that in the case of pledging allegiance to the flag and the republic for which it stands, our communication should be no, because Jesus' kingdom is not of this world.
And I'm going to give you an Isaiah quote. Say ye not a confederacy to all them to whom this people shall say a confederacy. Neither fear ye their fear, nor be afraid, which is very clear advice. Everybody's jumping off a bridge. Don't you go and jump off a bridge too. Use your mind.
Give me that reference. I'll include that in my article.
Yeah, that's Isaiah 8:12.
Okay, Isaiah 8:12. That is really good. Whoo!
And that's exactly what it is, right? I mean, you are, and just like you said, you are putting your life in their hands and out of God's hands, right? Yep. And into this other construct, which is of men. And as we know, if it's not of God,
This is why
the adversary.
exactly. This is why, I hate to say it, because a lot of them do it in ignorance. A lot of them get swept up in this patriotic fervor and they think it's their duty to sacrifice themselves for our quote collective good, which is, if that's not socialist, then what is? But nevertheless, this is why we say soldiers, cops, these elected officials who swear an oath to uphold the Constitution and all this stuff. When you pledge your allegiance, you're a pawn. You become a pawn for the state, or the technical term, a useful idiot, someone who is just subservient to the puppet masters.
Yes, and readily sacrificed for the puppet masters.
Yep. Oh man, I guess we can make a few more points here. I mean, when we talk, because I want to get to the under God part. I mean, if it's not evident, that under God part was an intentional afterthought. And then when you really think about it, we don't have time to really uncover who the God of Freemasonry is, but it's very clearly not the God of Jesus Christ. And if you really just look at it, I mean, since 1954, when under God was incorporated into the Pledge of Allegiance, I mean, it's not like the nation got any more righteous since then. I asked...
Quite the opposite.
Yeah, I asked, for better or for worse, I entered into ChatGPT, how many wars, conflicts, and occupations has the United States been in since 1954? And I got this answer. Using the broad definition many historians and military analysts use, the United States has been involved in roughly 40 to 50 distinct wars or major conflicts since 1954.
And that's what ChatGPT knows about.
Exactly. If you expand the count to include smaller interventions, proxy wars, and limited strikes, then a number often rises to the 70 or 90 range, which, I mean, that's just insane. So, and not to mention the fact that we have insurmountable debt. We have just crazy crippling poverty. We have just sexual perversion of every kind. And just the increasing stupidity of the youth because of these public schools. It's all by design.
Absolutely. It's not a great situation.
No.
We're not going to sugarcoat it, folks.
No, it's not a great situation. But I think that, this pilot episode, I think, is just hopefully one banger of many that I think will be the shock that people need to sit up and pay a little more attention, because when you talk about indoctrination and when we say it starts from a very young age, it truly starts from a very young age. And what's actually really crazy, we can't forget to mention the fact that despite the fact many people don't homeschool their children, particularly Christian evangelicals, whether you're Protestant, Catholic, Eastern Orthodox, doesn't matter. Despite the fact that a growing percentage of those people homeschool, they do it with the idea that I'm going to raise my child to be a better American than these public school kids, and they still indoctrinate. When you're looking at Christian homeschooling material, it's still giving you the national myth. It's still giving you Pledge of Allegiance. When we were looking at homeschooling material, it's not uncommon to find American symbols and that sort of thing.
Is that material also from Ghislaine Maxwell's father? Right. Probably.
Oh, man. Oh, point taken. Oh, man. No, it was actually from the guy whoever he served. It was from his boss.
Right.
Sure. As we know, there's a chain of command here. But I would not be surprised, and it's not uncommon for Christian homeschoolers to start their Christian homeschooling days off with the Pledge of Allegiance. I guarantee it.
Oh, dear.
And so it's like you're only doing half the work. You're still keeping them in the cult. And if you think it's not a cult, we just proved it to you that the Freemasonic the Freemasonic socialist foundation to this stuff is very evident.
American culture, right? It's in the name. Culture.
Yeah.
It's in the name.
Yep. Cunt tree.
Exactly. And that's also, it's like John Coleman said, I found this to be very profound when I read his book. He's an insider, former intelligence guy. He made it very clear. He said, when the intelligence community wants to hide something, they hide it in plain sight.
Yep.
That's the best way to hide something.
Yep.
All these things, we think they're one thing and we are mistaken until we take the time to reflect and not just go through the motions, right? Really heighten that awareness and understand what you're doing.
Yep.
And why. And one other point to that effect is anytime, especially kind of building off what we said earlier, if this is making you emotional or if this offends your sensibilities in whatever way, that is always an indication of some kind of trauma that needs to be worked out, of some kind of brainwashing that needs to be addressed.
Yep.
So, we've covered a lot, Nathan. This is pretty great for a pilot.
Yeah, I would agree. And, I think that we could end it here.
So, to sum it up, for what we've been talking about this episode, I think there's a lot to unpack, but it's to be very cautious about where your patriotic fervor comes from. Now, I'm not denouncing self-defense and defending your homeland and having pride in your homeland. These things are positive, but there comes a point where it does enter into cult territory, as we've been talking about, and you do become a pawn for something that may not have your best interest at heart.
Yeah.
Anything to add there, Nathan?
Well, you only have 3 minutes passing time between bells, so you better rush to your seat because you don't want to miss your indoctrination.
That is the counterplot, folks.